Republican Congressman Mike Waltz, member of the House Armed Services Committee and a former Green Beret commander. Let's begin right there. If this is what it takes to get Brittany Griner home, and we are certainly glad that an American has come home, and this was so frightening when they had moved her to that penal colony recently, because that's notorious across the planet. And at the same time, do we have anybody else in a one-on-one swap that would be equivalent to the type of person we just unleashed onto the world again in Victor Boot to trade for Paul Whelan?
Look, I share your sentiment, Harris, that in the short term, I'm always pleased when we get an American home that's being unjustly held, and I'm happy for the Griner family. But in the long term, appeasing terrorists, appeasing dictatorships never works in the interests of the United States. And the whole reason that regimes like Russia, North Korea, Iran, the Taliban, and others participate in hostage diplomacy is, in the end, we always cave, we always make a concession, and we always win. Or they always win, and we lose. So my heart breaks for the Whelan family. I think, a lot of people are asking, and rightly so. So what was his crime? Not being a celebrity? Not checking enough boxes for Hollywood? The fact that we left a U.S. Marine behind and made this choice, and I don't buy the Biden administration and President Biden saying we didn't have a choice. When do we start dictating the choices to Putin and the Iranian regime and the Taliban, rather than letting them dictate what we do and who we give over?
The president mentioned that they had someone else who they let free earlier this year. And then you had this situation, and all of that you have just said, those are the questions that people are asking. And at the same time, even David Whelan, Paul's brother, said, we apparently don't have what they want. But he did end with, the United States needs to be more assertive. What does that mean exactly? They don't want who we have, and we have to be more assertive. So what do we do?
Well, we have to start imposing costs, Harris. And what President Trump did was said, you know what, North Korea, you don't even get to sit down and talk to us as long as you're holding Americans. You don't get to even engage with the United States as long as you're holding hostages. On top of that, for example, the Taliban, we traded their top 5 draft picks out of Guantanamo for Bo Bergdahl. What did they do? They took Mark Frerichs and then got their biggest Taliban drug deal out for him. Russia, Iran, these states will continue doing this until we start imposing costs, and until they go, you know what, if we take another American, this isn't worth it for us, from sanctions, diplomatic isolation, or even military action when it comes to some of these terrorist groups. It's only then. The bad guys are deterred by strength and by cost, but right now all they see is upside, and they're going to keep taking Americans hostage around the world as long as they get big trades like this.
Well, when you say that, I know you have the experience of knowing when people have been taken. Sometimes the American public doesn't realize they were taken, and then you were able to get them out. I mean, that's some of what we saw in the aftermath of Afghanistan. I mean, our people were imperiled when we left and pulled out so quickly, and so many of our special forces who had retired were people among those who went in to try to get those Americans out and were successful. I mean, there's a whole backdrop to people in the world who want to take Americans. Real quickly, Victor Boot, I just want to say this. He became notorious for his willingness to arm anybody. Militias in Sierra Leone, Charles Taylor's brutal Liberian regime, and the Taliban. And he got those weapons when the Soviet Union fell in 1991, a vast quantity of Soviet military hardware that he began peddling. No doubt this guy is a bad guy. I can't imagine that he doesn't go back to what he was doing. Your quick thought.
No, I mean, exactly. What he was really doing was making billions of dollars for Putin and his oligarchs that control these Russian arms companies. And guess what? They are desperate for ammunition and arms. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel from North Korea to Iran to around the world. And Victor Boot's going to be right in the middle of it for Russia's war effort in Ukraine. So Biden just gave Putin a huge, huge tool in the toolkit to fund and to arm Russia's war machine. And oh, by the way, Paul Whelan's still sitting there, and the next time Russia wants a concession, they're just going to take another American because it's nothing but upside for them. There's no downside.
Look, we are grateful that an American, Brittany Griner, has come home. When you talk about Paul Whelan, though, the reports of his health are troubling. And so we pray that he can sustain and that his family can be in contact as much as they need to, and keep in prayer for all of them, such that if something comes about where we can bring him home, he can sustain until then. Congressman Waltz, thank you very much. Appreciate you going in focus.
Thanks, Harris.